All right, hey everybody, welcome back to the Made for the Range podcast. Really cool guest today. I was doing the math a second ago. I think I've known you for like 5 years now, maybe 4, but going on 5.
It might be.
Which is a longer time than I would have thought. But this is Alan. He's the head fitter here at ERX Putter Fitting Studio. Also, obviously, works with Evnroll and does a lot with the product development team, working on the new stuff. We got some new stuff coming out. The new Zero line just launched most recently, which has been pretty killer, and I absolutely love that line. But yeah, just tell us just a tiny little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into all the questions I have for you.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. Always good to see you, buddy.
Appreciate it.
Good to have you into the studio here. And a little background on myself. I am, fitter first around here, so I get to handle the public that wants to come in. I get to give my 2 cents on some product development. I'm in the marketing meetings. So I get to wear a lot of hats around Evnroll, which is fun, and then I also get to work on tour. So get to travel to some PGA Tour events and work with some LPGA pros as well. Yeah. Get them into the studio and at least show our product, and it's always a good time working with those guys too.
Awesome. That's a perfect intro. I love that. All right. So a couple of things in what you just said with your intro too. 1, getting to work with tour players is really, really cool. But 2, so ERX here in Carlsbad is sort of unique because there's not many companies that you can just show up and go get fit for their product. Specifically when we talk about putters, it's way easier to go get fit for, swing clubs than it is for your putter. But to have an experience here at the brand headquarters is a really, really unique thing. So what was the catalyst behind that? Like, before we get into your background, and I want to ask you a bunch of questions about where you came from, how did we get to ERX in its existence? Like, what sparked the idea that it would be really cool for just people in the public to be able to book a fitting directly with the company at their headquarters?
Sure. So I think it probably sparked back when the company first started. So Evnroll started in 2016. Obviously founded our CEO and our chief designer, Garen Reif. Yeah. And in his vision is, if you can get properly fit, it enhances his designs and his technology to where you can have a lot more confidence on the putting green. And then it also offers a really cool experience to where you can have that mental connection with your putter that everybody craves. Yeah.
Yeah, I've done a fitting with you here 1.5 times, let's say, because the second time was just us kind of messing around. But it's also it's very unique. So you guys use Quintec in here, which is a high industry standard for putting fitting or for putter fittings. But the way you guys go about the messaging behind the putters is also really unique, because obviously Evnroll, like, it's in the name that you guys really, really care about the initial roll and getting that ball started on line properly, rolling forward as soon as possible with the correct launch conditions and everything. But it's an interesting story because every different putter company has a different story that they like to tell, right? And your guys' is all about roll. There's a lot in the face, which we'll get into later. But how do you think... What's the light bulb moment for a lot of the public average weekend golfers that come in here and get fit? What's the moment where they're like, oh, I'm being treated special, like, this is different, this is the reason you get fit? What do you think that trigger is for people?
Sure, great question. I'll do my best to answer that. I think it varies from player to player. I come from the school of Quintec, so I base a lot of putting data on our initial Quintec information. And what's super cool, the biggest light bulb for players, is they'll bring their current club, whatever it might be, and it's launching too high, we've got backspin, or they're jamming it into the ground, and all I do is hand them an Evnroll, maybe even no adjustments at all. Yeah. And all of a sudden our numbers are green and blue, and we've got perfect roll conditions, and maybe a couple more adjustments down the road, and that's really the light bulb moment. To second that, I think our room is super unique in the sense that we have almost too many combinations, too many options,
There's
right?
So much
between
in here, yeah.
Length and grip and weight and where the CG is located and offset and toe hang. I can keep going, So we have a really unique situation where you can literally try everything.
Yeah, I also think it's cool. I mean, I've seen a couple, I would call them custom options come out of here as well, where, you guys aren't afraid to really hone in on a variable for a player and make sure that they leave here with something they feel 100% confident in, which is awesome. The other thing, too, very unique to Evnroll, is that you, if you're just a random member of the public anywhere near this area, I would say come get fit. But the other part of that is you're going to come get fit. The putter's final assembly is on like basically the other side of this wall, which is sweet. But then everything else is done within a, what is it, like a 2 mile radius of here, essentially, is what it is. So like they get milled, they get finished, and everything is done here by these people. We actually did a really cool video last year with Evnroll telling like the story of it. We did some sit downs with Garen, and if you watch that video, you can see the look in people's faces of everybody that works here, that it doesn't matter what their job is, what department they're in, or what stage of the putter they touch. They all love this product and they all support the product, and they think that the idea of this being a local product that is 100% made here, and again, by here I mean literally like a 2 mile circle, is just so cool. And I think that's the experience to me, that coming into ERX, and if you're, again, you can be anybody. This is not a tour fitting facility. It's a tour level fitting facility, but it's not for tour only. It's for anybody, and everybody can come here and enjoy it. And then like Alan said, if you were to look around this room, I mean, there's 6 right there. There's like 20 over there. There's individual combos of every single thing over there, plus like 30 more heads. If you don't walk out of here confident in your new putter, something happened, or the building fire alarm went off and you had to run outside. But okay, so before we get into all the Evnroll specific stuff, I do want to just talk about you a little bit. So part of doing this podcast is I have found that there's so many individual people in golf that I just really enjoy as human beings, and it's fun to get to know them past what just their job role is, because obviously you had a life before you came to Evnroll, and like you said, you came from the Quintex School of Training, and like how did that get started and stuff. So bring us back to the first time you worked in golf, right? Like, did you golf growing up, or were you a competitive golfer? Is it just something that you love to do? Like, what's your background with just golf, and then how did you get started working in golf?
Sure.
It's a big question, I know.
That is a good question. I'll try to make it as semi-short as I can. But let's see. I started playing golf when I was probably 7 or 8.
Okay.
So I'm a lifer, man. I was the kid that just had a great time out there. I played quite a bit of junior golf. I grew up in a pretty small town in Colorado, but a little bit of junior golf, and I played some high school golf as well. So I've got a little bit of a competitive background. But I took a little bit of a break through college. I was actually a baseball player for in my other life, and then through school I worked at golf courses. So I was cleaning carts, I was working in the shop, making tee times. I was even working in the restaurant at a certain point.
Sure.
So doing a lot of that, and then I moved out to California after school, and started working mainly in club repair and club fitting, which I had a little bit of a background working at a couple of different clubs.
Sure.
In a different city, and learned a lot from a PGA professional at that particular independently owned shop.
Okay.
Actually, and did that for about 3 years, and an opening became available here at Evnroll, and it was something I was really interested in. And I came on, Garen hired me, and I was originally, part-time fitter and customer service representative, basically. So I was answering phones, I was doing emails, as well as doing as many fittings as I could do on the side.
Yeah.
So that's what got me into it, and then just to second what you said about people in the golf industry, I think the passion of what they enjoy doing and what they have is such an interest in. It makes them cool people in that sense.
Yeah.
So they're easy to get along with,
Yeah.
So that's what I would say.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, you have a unique opportunity to work with Garen too, which is, I think the people that work here, I don't want to say take it for granted, but after you work with anybody for however long, you just get used to the person being a person, right? But obviously Garen has a pretty rich history within the game of golf, so I'm sure when you started, was there a little bit of like like this is cool. I get to work this closely with Garen Reif, and because he came from like Evnroll is like you said, started in 2016, but Garen's been designing putters far before that. I mean, there was old Reif putters, like there was Garen Reif just designed putters that he released, and then when Evnroll started, obviously, but there had to be some sort of like sense, at least in the beginning. And now it's just, now it's just Garen, right? Like he's just a friend and a guy that works and a guy that still designs great stuff and cares a lot about his product. But at the beginning, what did that feel like? Because was there a fitter here before you, or did you start the like I kind of credit you, and again, I don't actually know this, but I kind of credit you for what ERX is, because even if you didn't start it necessarily, I think that people like ERX and you are in the same conversation all the time, right? Like you can't talk about one without the other, basically. Like that's how other people that know you and I like talk about it, and like it's just one and the same. But talk about the inception of ERX a little bit, and if it was a little bit here before you, when you came in, what have you done to make it what it is now?
Yeah, good question. First off, Garen is an awesome guy to work for. I love Garen. When I first met him, he's got a reputation. He's extremely knowledgeable, not just in putters alone, but advertising and design and logos and colors. He's just a wealth of information. So I just try to be a sponge as much as I can when I'm around Garen.
Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents there. As far as how ERX has evolved over the years, we were in a different location as of about 3 years ago now.
Okay.
A smaller operation, and we kind of had this putter fitting ERX station, hidden back away. It wasn't as pretty, but we did our best to offer as many combinations as possible. And then once we introduced the V series specifically, is where we were able to take a look at a lot of different combination options as far as hosels and weighting and grips. We actually use a coupling system for the grips and shafts to where we can try different lengths and different grips on different heads, and it takes 5 seconds to interchange, which really it makes, again, this place pretty unique. And I like to think that I had a lot to do with how this has evolved. I think it's the most detail-oriented putter fitting that you can find out there. We'll take 60, 90 minutes usually to diagnose your preferences and what's ultimately going to help you putt better.
Yeah, absolutely. So you bring up a good point there about like how detailed the fitting is here, and some of that has to do with the equipment that you guys have. Like obviously the V series is huge in that, but you mentioned the ability to change out shaft length and grip too with the coupler system, which is not something that everybody has. Even major fitters don't have the ability to do that with certain stuff. So really quick, explain to people, because with my audience and what I get a lot is somebody who has never been fit for, and the question I get a lot is, what is the difference between demoing and fitting? So going into a big box store and seeing a wall of Evnroll putters and going in there and trying out a bunch of putters and feeling like you can leave with one that you like versus coming in here and getting fit. I know that's a very long answer, so feel free you can really go into it if you want to.
Got it. So I think the best way I can put that is a putter fitting is going to involve demoing, and then just walking into a shop and demoing is not going to be fitting, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So through the fitting process, we're going to put you through a questionnaire first. Get an idea of what you like to look at, what you're used to. We'll measure your current putter, whether it's a good one or a bad one, whether you're putting good or putting bad. You like everything about the putter except you hate the grip, or you love the grip and you hate everything else. So we'll figure out what you're used to first, and then we'll roll some putts on Quintec, which we can really identify your tendencies, and that's the stuff we can't feel. So path, how you control the face angle, how much side spin we have on the ball, where we're hitting the ball heel to toe, high, low on the face. So it's all making sure, we're consistent and ultimately confident in what we walk away with.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the big thing there, like you said, is fitting is always going to include some sort of demo, because there is a point in a fitting where, especially with a putter, right? Like a lot of it is visual and feel. And sometimes it's just like, okay, hit a couple with this, hit a couple with this, hit a couple with this. But what people don't realize is when you do that in a big box store and you're doing that yourself with no supervision, you're only doing that now based off of sound and visual, and then maybe the 5-foot putt that you made on an artificial green. What happens in a fitting, though, with somebody like Alan is you do that, and he might hand you 3 putters that you only hit 2 balls each with, but what he's watching and what he's looking for is a ton of information, right? Like Quintek is fantastic, or there's places that use Sam Putt Lab, which is more club based, but that stuff is fantastic. But to have a fitter who's trained and knows what he's doing and also knows the product, that's a benefit of this being only Evnroll in here. They're watching that stroke, whether it's being measured on Quintek or not. It's a really, really cool thing to watch a fitter who's really good at what they do look at something like Quintek, or if when you're doing swing stuff, it's TrackMan or Foresight or whatever, and to have a fitter to be able to essentially fit you, right? Like, I think you're gonna like this, and then not look at the Quintek data right away, because I also saw you fit Sarah the one day, and it was like half that fitting you guys weren't looking at the screen at all. It was just you going like, you had worked with Sarah before, which also helps, and that's a benefit here as well, is you can get fit with Alan, and then if you want something in the future, it's easy to come back in, and your fitting gets better every time you can work with the same fitter. Like, that's always going to be a benefit. But I was sitting there and like watching you do this, and it was crazy how this, like the Quintek stuff came up, you talked through it, but then it was a lot of like, scientifically, and as a fitter, I think you're going to like this, but if you hate it visually and you don't like how it feels, I can do X, 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 X like this. So that's a huge thing for me, is there's a big difference between a demo, a supervised demo, and a fitting. They're 3 completely different things that I really, really harp on people to not get confused. And then so as we dive into that fitting, for you, obviously with using Quintek, there's so much data up there, but if you had to boil down a fitting to the 3 most important characteristics of making sure that that putter works for that player, other than visuals and feel, like just pure data, what are those data points that you're going to really, really hone in on for a player?
Sure. Good question. And this is probably one that I try to drive home to consumers, even tour players, when I'm working with those guys. And first off, I know you said to leave out feel and look, but you can't.
Okay? I was kind of leading you down a bad path at that one.
And I think that's half of the entire equation. Okay, so we'll leave it at that. The other half, though, is how we control the face, and that comes down to maybe toe hang, offset, where the center of gravity is located in the head, grip, length, the overall weight, the swing weight, and so. Ultimately, again, we're trying to square up the face angle, keep that face square to your path, and then we want to roll the ball efficiently. So controlling the face angle, controlling the path, and rolling the ball efficiently.
So explain the roll side of this real quick, because I think a lot of people are also misunderstood. Again, when I do these podcasts, I just assume that it's somebody hearing this stuff for the first time. So it's easy to ask questions because you and I know, but roll is a really tricky one that I've seen for people to understand, because they don't understand 2 things. One, you have to launch the ball. People they think that it's just a flat surface all the time. They don't understand the idea that a ball is actually sitting in a little, like all the stuff that we understand about loft on a putter. So that's one of the ones I really want to hone in on, is talking about why that matters so much, because I think that people way overlook the proper loft on a putter. And then secondly, what roll actually means in a putt, and more specifically, what it means for the first 3 feet of your putt. There's a lot of confusion with people. I've had people ask me, can you slice a putter? And it's like, well, it depends what you mean by slice, but also it depends how granular you want me to get really quick about
Exactly.
it. So talk about those 2 things, and feel free to talk about it specifically with Evnroll, because this is where a lot of that face technology and the sweet face stuff is going to come into play. But yeah, so start with loft, and just how would you explain the need for loft to somebody who's never been fit for a putter, and then how that loft and then that roll influences the start of your putt, essentially.
Sure. So basically, when we're looking at quintic numbers, and I say ball roll efficiency to put it all under one umbrella.
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
so we're looking for the proper launch angle on the ball to get it up and out of the little depression that it sits in, that we can't necessarily see or feel. And that usually, depending on the green speeds and surface conditions, is going to be about 0.75 degrees to 2.5 degrees. You know, if you're looking at maybe a 7 stimp to a 13 stimp,
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
looking at a big range there, okay? And so that's a question we would ask through the fitting, is what type of greens you play.
Yeah.
To second that, we're looking for topspin rotation at impact. And that means no backspin, no skidding,
Yeah.
and the ball's going to roll more true right off the face. So with that topspin and proper launch, we eliminate the factor of imperfections in the green, kind of knocking the ball offline. It's
Yeah.
not going to be hitting that lip or being jammed into the ground too much. And that's extremely important when you're changing slopes on the green, right? And so if we have an uphill putt and a quarter of a degree of launch angle, even though on a flat surface, on this pool table type
Yeah.
surface, it's
Yeah.
going to work. As soon as it's a little bit of a softer surface, uphill putt, good luck getting the ball to the hole.
Yeah.
Because it's going to hit the ground first.
You're actually hitting into the surface at that
It can
point.
be
Yeah.
knocked offline.
Yeah.
And then lastly, and not to discredit this portion, but it's the side spin. And that comes from strike location and face angle and
Yeah.
path, just like your driver.
Yeah.
So eliminating that as well.
Yeah, it's I think it's severely understated, like how important the first 18 inches of your putt is. You mentioned the idea of forward spin versus no backspin and skidding. Define that for people real quick, because I think there's some people, like, even at that level, they don't know, like, when you say the ball is skidding off the face, what do you mean when you say that to people?
Got it. So usually it means that there is either too much loft on the putter face, or we're possibly hitting down on the ball a little bit. And it's kind of like a wedge, to put it simply, is the ball tends to ride up the face a little bit, right at impact, and create some backspin. So we might be able to show some quintic images to really demonstrate that skid.
Yeah.
But the ball goes backwards after impact and bounces a couple times before it starts to rotate towards a target. And during that change of direction is when it's most susceptible to being knocked offline. And that's obviously not good, because the ball's already left the face.
Yeah, absolutely. So then, again, just like diving into a couple like really quick questions with putter fitting. A, is it better to hit up with your putter, or is it better to have a negative attack angle?
I would say, in general, most coaches will tell you to hit up on it just slightly.
Okay.
We want to be, just ever so slightly having the low point in the stroke behind the golf ball.
Do you believe in different putters for fast greens and slow greens?
Depends on the player, and I
Okay.
could say that for a lot of your questions, probably.
Yeah.
I know that most or some tour players can add weight to their putter depending on the speed. As far as shape, probably not. Loft, though, you might want to add some more loft for some slower greens. I know that's a trend for some guys.
Yep. I'm trying to think of just like other rapid fire questions for you. Okay. Head weight. So last year, it's 2025. 2023, there was a huge counterbalance story, right? It's something that inspired the 38 spec that you guys have now. It became a really big industry trend. So the overall weight versus head weight versus handle weight in a putter, how do you handle that conversation? Is it purely a comfort thing, or is there something that you see in a player where you go, I really should put this person in the longer counterbalance spec?
That's a good question. I think, again, it's so player dependent.
Yeah.
It depends on what they're used to. They've been playing an old ping from whatever it is from the
like
70s.
an old Raptor or something like that. Yeah.
It's a 400-gram putter, and of course I'm not going to give them something that feels like a sledgehammer. But at the same point, it was a trend for a reason.
Yeah.
So it's usually got a heavier, stiffer shaft, 15, 20 grams, maybe even 30 grams extra head weight. And then the grip is going to be slightly bigger, slightly heavier, to add some counterbalance. And the whole combination of those things makes the putter really stable.
Yeah.
And when we say stable, we mean it's smooth on the takeaway, it's forgiving on off-center hits, and that's what makes putting easier.
Yeah. So who do you think who would not fit into the counterbalance trend? Because I got to tell you, I have received enough messages that I know there's a good group of them, of people that like went out and bought one of the counterbalance putters with no demo, no fit. It was just, this is the trend, I'm going to get one, and hated it. And I was able to kind of talk with those people and tell them like, well, you were probably never going to like that. So who is that person that you think, if you could tell right now somebody was about to add to cart a 38 spec instead of a normal spec putter, who would you be like, that's probably not what I would tell you to buy? Like, just add the regular one to your cart instead. It's a tricky question. You can take it.
That is a tricky one. I would say first off, probably two things for sure. Grip size. If you don't, our grip specifically is, I would call it an oversized shape.
Yeah, for sure.
Grip.
Yeah.
And so if you're not comfortable with something like that, it's might not work. Aside from that, is going to be the weight. I would say it's about, we'll say roughly 90 to 100 grams heavier overall static weight.
Yeah.
Compared to
the whole build. Yeah, the whole build.
Compared to a traditional putter. And so sometimes that weight can throw off your feel and your touch. And so I think speed control can suffer, at least at first.
Yeah. Okay, that's a great answer. I've always a lot of times I get that question. It's somebody who's playing like an ER1, for example, and then they try to switch to this big monster. I'm like, well, that's a really big change. And if you're saying that you're a good putter, but you just wanted to try something new, you went from one end of the spectrum to the other, and that maybe wasn't the brightest idea. So I'm also, in the corner of my eye here, I'm seeing a bunch of aftermarket shafts. So talk to us about that a little bit, because there's a very unique part to Evnroll where, and I would say that you guys kind of started this, at least on a larger scale, is the versatility and the adaptability of the V series, right? You can, now with the 5, you can change out the shape, but with everything else, it's interchangeable hosels. Obviously, we always have the head weights there, but that interchangeable hosel system was a really big deal when I worked at the fitter that I worked at before. And part of that for me, just being a nerd, was the ability to build up aftermarket shafts and test them head to head. Same head, same exact green, same location. In 30 seconds, you can test the regular steel shaft versus whatever aftermarket options are built up in an Evnroll hosel, which is exactly what I use mine for at home. I have a normal plumber's neck on an Evnroll hosel, and then I have, 4 or 5 options of aftermarket stuff, and it's fun to show friends. And to me, it's always been a benefit with Evnroll of if I wanted to have people come over and try the aftermarket stuff, they're all going to roll in Evnroll because that's the system that I have it in. It was an inherent benefit for fitting centers to have something that even if maybe they weren't using an Evnroll in that fitting, it's guess what? Now they are, because they're testing that aftermarket shaft. And that I've seen personally, I have seen lead to other sales too, because they're like, whoa, what is this thing? But talk to us a little bit about aftermarket putter shafts. Obviously, over the last couple of years, they've gotten way more popular. Some of that's due to Bryson, but then also some of it's just due to, pretty much every brand has kind of jumped on that train when it comes to shaft companies. And I think there's big benefits to it, mostly in feel. That's always been my big thing. But what are your thoughts on aftermarket putter shafts? Who would they fit for, and when do you pull them out in a fitting?
Sure, good question. We try to keep them on display. We got to move this thing.
Yeah.
Try to keep them on display, and so if there is interest, we definitely use those through the fitting, usually towards the end, once we have a good idea of the big picture on what we want to build.
Sure.
I'm with you though. The shaft upgrade portion of the fitting is super beneficial. Specifically from my standpoint in my studio is I have all the vendors.
Yeah.
And so, I have the lighter version, I have the heavier version, I have the soft flex, I have the firmer flex.
Yeah.
And so I'm able to play around with weight and flex, and it all affects that ultimate feel
Yep.
as we go through this. And then I think the last factor is we talked about like the 38 being more stable. High MOI putters more stable.
Yeah.
Reducing some torque, and with some aftermarket putter shafts, you're again increasing some stability and not necessarily changing the overall weight too much.
Yeah. So, Quintech wise, data wise, what have you seen from aftermarket putter shafts, if anything? I haven't spent, so I will only use either BGT, or if I'm doing a straight in, I use usually either a Diamana, the new P105s, or like a BGT Stability, the all-in ones, right? But I'm obsessed with the BGT Tour, the one that goes over anything else. I love that shaft. I think it's genuinely the feel that I just really am sought after. Mm-hmm. But to be honest with you, I've never put that putter against the same putter with a steel shaft on Quintech or Sam Putt Lab. Nothing. Like it's just a feel that I like. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming I'm getting some sort of performance benefit out of it, but I've never put it on a putter because of that. So it's for you with Quintech and with this studio, and you've done it, I'm sure, several times now with the aftermarket stuff. What performance benefit, if any, and obviously none of those companies are yours, so you can be honest. What performance benefit, if any, have you actually seen out of going to an aftermarket putter shaft?
Yeah, I think when we do have a chance to put it on Quintech and give it a good test through some of our R&D testing, we've seen that ultimately high-low mishits, toe-heel mishits will be able to maintain ball speed.
Oh, okay.
And so it does make the putter more forgiving. And I think a lot of that is, the way I understand it, if we can get the putter shaft stiffer, you're not going to have as much deflection based on the mishit. And then, it's also going to depend on the putter head style. I think sometimes the stiffness doesn't work for some players, though. And they want to feel some play in the shaft. And they want to feel that shaft kick at a certain point. And that enhances their feel at a certain level. So player dependent. Again.
Yeah, no, and like that's never a bad answer. People hate when I give them that answer online too. They're like, "Hey,
it's the worst.
What about this?" Or like, there's been a bunch of releases the week that we're filming this. This is we're in early January here. And there's been a bunch of releases this week, and people are like, "Well, how does it compare to this thing?" Or like, "Do you think I should play this if I have this?" I'm like, "Well, I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know. All I can do is tell you that the head was designed with these characteristics, and if you're this kind of person, it might work for you. There's a higher chance that it will work for you. If you're this person, I can tell you that it won't work for you." And that's always been a really important part of my content is I don't necessarily want to lead you down to what you should buy, but I definitely want to tell you what I know won't work for you, right? I never want to lead somebody down a purchase route because that gets scary. Like, I don't know you. I haven't seen you putt. I haven't seen you play. I can't just tell you to buy something with the confidence that I know it's going to work for you. Mm-hmm. But I can usually tell you how to narrow your search, right? And that's also the difference, too, when we talk about demoing versus fitting, is demoing might do a decent job narrowing your search. 100%. I have no issue saying that. But it cannot be the way that you pick a new purchase. Just in my opinion, you absolutely do need to get fit for, and honestly, a lot of it's just for confidence, right? Like to walk out of wherever you're getting that piece of equipment and know that you made a good purchase, you will feel a million times more confident if you do it with a proper fitting. I don't care what club it is in your bag. And then that leads me into my next thing so putter fittings are a little bit unique in the sense that, to me, it's the only club in the bag where the fitter or the coach can actually say like, man, like what you have is really close to really good for you. Let's make these tiny little technical tweaks, and then I'm going to make one small tweak to your putting stroke, and now all of a sudden that putter is golden and it's perfect, and they can confidently use that same one with the tweaks that a fitter has made. So what's that relationship for you, right? Because you and I have talked before about not every single person that comes in here you send away with something new because you're not that guy, right? Like you're not. If Quintex says your thing is great and you can make, maybe it's a loft tweak or a lie angle tweak for somebody, you're going to allow that person to putt well with what they have because there's no reason for them to do it. Now, a lot of the times, obviously, somebody's going to come in here and they want the new Evnroll thing, so they're going to leave with it. But as a fitter and also somebody who knows the putting stroke really, really well, how do you strike that balance between I want to just fit you for what you've got and for how you putt versus I can make really quick little changes, and it's very different than saying, hey, I need you to change your shallowness on your driver, right? Like, I hate when people do that. Like, if I'm in a driver fitting, just let me swing my swing and give me something that works, or tell me that I'm terrible and I have to go get a lesson. Like, but giving somebody a swing tip in the middle of a fitting is disastrous because they might do it during the fitting, but they sure as hell are not going to do it when they go back outside. And now they have weird clubs. But a putter fitting, again, I talk too much, but a putter fitting is very different in like it's pretty easy to give a small stroke tip or a setup change or to just adjust the loft and lie of a putter because the roll is just not right, even though the stroke looks really good. Mm-hmm. So, again, long question short. How do you strike that balance? Again, you see a lot of people putt. You've seen a lot of putting strokes. And what balance is there for you of, showing them what they're doing versus building them something new?
Yeah, good question. It's trying to balance the two, and first we'll make some minor adjustments to the putter first, usually, and then we'll take a look at setup. I think putting is more unique than full swing as far as the setup position controls everything. Yeah. Everybody can rock their shoulders. Literally. Yeah. And so, getting your eyes in the right spot, getting the ball position in the correct spot, shoulder alignment, hip alignment, foot alignment, and that's pretty much it. And that's going to control how you see a straight line in a lot of cases, and control your path and make sure that you're, again, probably not hitting down on the ball too much or not hitting up on the ball too much. And then we can, build you a putter to fit inside of those parameters, which usually makes the Quintic info look a little prettier. Yeah. But kind of to your point with a full swing fitting is I'm not trying to shock the system at all. Yeah. Right? If all of a sudden, we need to move the ball position forward, but we lost our control of the face and we were just trying to make the ball roll better, well, I'd rather make putts with less than perfect ball roll. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I think there's some give and take to that. And then we can trick your brain with the putter fitting a little bit, Yeah. I'll bend the loft, I'll bend the lie, I'll add some weight here and there to affect your stroke in a way you can't even feel. Yeah. You know what I mean? Or you set it down and it's like, well, why does it look closed? And it's like, well, I'll bend it and all of a sudden it looks perfectly square. Yeah. And so we can sprinkle some magic on it that way too. Yeah. Yeah, and to me that's always been the coolest part about putter fittings. And I tell people all the time, like, if you haven't gotten a fitting before, do a putter fitting not only to get a new putter, but I think it's the coolest and easiest to understand data. And you understand, like in a putter fitting, you understand so much about your stroke, right? Like the putter fitting is about the putter, right? You're trying to leave with a putter that fits your game. But inherently in a putter fitting versus a full swing fitting, you get so much more information about what you're doing with that putter than you do with a swing club, just because of the mechanics of how a putter works and how easy it is to manipulate a putter to work with something that might not be ideal. I've told people that forever, right? Like if you're in love with something, if you come into this room and you look at everything in here and you're like, Alan, I love that. There's a 90% chance that you can make that putter
90% okay for that golfer.
I would say that, yeah.
Within a comfortable reason of everybody's a golfer that sometimes is going to make a bad putt, right? And that's not something you can do, though, with a set of irons or wedges or a drive. Like, you just can't. There's no capability to do that, which is why putter fittings are so cool. And then when you add in the tech, because I get bugged all the time by people. It's just a putter. It doesn't matter. It's just a putter. I can use any. It's not, though. There's such a difference between everything. And it doesn't matter if it's the exact same putter with a different neck. It doesn't matter if it's the exact same putter with a different head weight, with a different grip. It's the moment you change something on a putter, the whole stroke can be affected. And I think that that's just so damn cool, because that's why I'm a big club nerd, right? Like, I want to know, like, what's the smallest, dumbest thing that I can change, and it'll completely change the characteristics of this club. And there's nothing easier in your bag to do that with than a putter.
Great point. I think, and that's what makes my job so fun sometimes, is a guy comes in and he's like, man, I just lost the club championship on a 2-footer, and it's like, I'm gonna quit golf. You know what I mean? And so if you can get somebody putting better, they're gonna have more fun. They're gonna not only send their friends in, but everybody's gonna start making more putts and enjoying the game more.
Yeah, I have I've had a couple of quick rants here, but so one in particular, and I think you and I have talked about this before. I used to work somewhere, and they frequently promoted the idea that your putting stroke is 40% of your game. I actually don't think that number is high enough, first off, for most people, because if you do the math, if you shoot 90, 40% of 90 is exactly 36, which means you two-putted every hole. That's not the part of your bag that you should be worried about, because if you got there in time, you would have parred every single hole. So you either hit the ball out of bounds, or you were short, or you chunked a wedge or something. Like, in that scenario, your putter is not your problem. I will tell people, if you don't feel like you can two-putt from anywhere on any green, that's when I would suggest you get your putting stroke looked at and you look at your putter. And then from there, if you've honed in the rest of your game, and let's say now you're breaking 80, now you need to worry about your putter being 100% from 3 feet and in. And if you can't make a 3-foot putt with whatever putter you've got in your hands, and I do legitimately mean every single time, there is something wrong with your putter stroke and your putter not equalizing. Because if you're breaking 80, but you're missing 3-foot putts, now we can talk about that being your problem. So if you see that marketing, do the math in your head, because that's dumb. Because most people that go get fit are shooting about 90. Like, that's your most popular person to go get fit in the general scheme of the industry shoots about bogey golf, which is 90. And so to say that person is 40% putting, and what the funny part is, it was advertising that as 40% putting, and that's why it's so important to get fit for your putter. I'm like, well, but that person two-putted every single green. So yay for that. Like, good. Like, don't, like, keep two-putting every green. But the moment you start to break 80, I've told people, you have to make sure that from 10 feet in, you're scaring the hole every single putt. From 3 feet in, you have to be making those putts if you want to drop down to breaking 75 and then breaking par eventually. Because, I mean, last year was the first time that I broke par in my career, and it was 100% because the putting was so good. I didn't do, like, it was just a really good day with everything else, and it did come down to the putter. And but I think people misunderstand at what score or at what capability does your putter become important, and then when does it become life or death, right? Where when you're trying to break 75 or trying to break par, that's when your putter's life and death. When you're trying to go from 82 to 77, that's where your putter it can't have a bad day in that range, right? If you 3-putt because you missed the front of a green on a back pin that's tiered and whatever, it's going to happen. That was probably your wedge's fault. But when you're trying to get into that spot, you have to make sure that this stuff is dialed down. And that's why we talk about using Quintech to talk about roll. And that's why I keep harping that the first 18, 24 inches of your putt are the most crucial part of that putt. Because if you don't do that right, if it doesn't come off the face correctly, you've lost a 15-foot putt the minute you made impact with it. You never gave it a chance, that was actually a conversation that I had with Garen at one point of like really harping in on the fact that the reason he chose to focus on roll and and I say that's the primary focus. Obviously, when you come in and you get fit with Alan, you're going to talk about alignment, you're going to talk about setup, you're going to talk about everything in it. But Evnroll is quite literally named Evnroll because he was so focused on making sure that coming off the face, that ball was doing everything properly because it makes the rest of that putt feel great. So, lastly, I guess we can start to wrap up. Well, no, that's a lie. We have two more things.
Okay.
So, Zero.
Yeah.
Zero is really freaking cool. The old Zero, I absolutely loved. I still putt with all the time. So, obviously, another company has made the Zero Torque idea a giant trend, right? There's no debating that. We can all get around it. What's the catalyst for the new Zero lineup? Because you guys did one really unique thing that nobody else has done with the actual makeup of the putter. But what took Zero OG to now the new Zero, which is also a family, which is sick. There's 3 shapes. Talk to us a little bit about that catalyst, what you've done with players, how you tested it, what the idea was going into that launch, and then now we're what, 3 months into Zero being available, maybe 2 months? I don't know. It's not that long. But talk to us about that and the development of that, because I'm super curious internally, like what happened and what sparked the new family.
Sure, great question, and obviously, it's kind of created its own category as far as putters. You've got your toe hang, your face balance, and now we've got some Zero Torque putters out there that kind of, I wouldn't say one size fits all, but it's definitely created another option for certain players and certain strokes. What's cool about our Zero line is Garen has really engineered a different way of doing it, right? And then, so simply put, to make the putter Zero Torque, you're essentially pointing the shaft axis right at the center mass of the putter head, and that allows it to be toe up or face forward in our case. And we do it by what looks like at first glance a opposite-handed plumber neck, right? And it is that, but it's also specifically engineered to be, pointing at the center of gravity. And it allows the shaft specifically to be more in a straight up and down position, right? And so you don't have to deal with that excessive shaft lean, which our original Zero takes advantage of because it has that diagonal grip, right? And so, but to talk about the new stuff specifically, I think my favorite part is just the overall aesthetic of it, and then the sound and feel. The Z5 and Z2 specifically are one-piece stainless steel options, and so it is going to sound like an Evnroll. It's going to feel like an Evnroll, and it's not going to have that inconsistent harshness that some players don't like when you get away from a steel product.
100%.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And you still get face technology. Like there's still sweet face technology.
Thank you.
In
And
the
that's
Zeros.
not to discredit that at all. That's on all our products. That's Garen's patent to enhance the forgiveness on off center hits and dispersion as well. So that's on everything.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. The new Zero lineup is fantastic. Like I said, I love my OG Zero. I use it all the time. I built up you bent it actually, the broomstick one that we built. The guy that's using that actually putts side saddle. I don't know if I told you that because I didn't want to tell you that before we did it.
Got it.
But he uses it. It's not a broomstick, right? He actually uses it like side saddle.
Okay.
He loves the thing, and we are. So I'm actually trying to build my new Zero the same way to try it. I'm not gonna putt like that. I'm not gonna game it like that. But we're prepared to light Golf WRX on fire with the newest side saddle option for people, because there's like this little there's a category on WRX of side saddle people.
Really?
That there's one putter that they all use because they think it's, and my buddy that I built that putter up for has not released it out there that he does it, but he's in that group, in that forum, and he keeps saying when can I do this? And I keep telling him just wait, because I want to make a new one too. And so you guys might have a weird cult of side saddlers
You
coming your
find
way.
all the rabbit holes, don't you?
I really do. It's just it's how you have to. Like it's just that's the way things work around here.
That's funny.
And then okay, so now finally, lastly, because we did cover zero, is with ERX with Evnroll. Like I said, this is before PGA Show January. I don't know when this is actually going to come out, but that's when we're filming it. By the time this comes out, the new V Series will be launched, so we can talk about it a little bit.
Yes.
So the new V Series is really if it's not broke, don't fix it kind of thing. We got some beautiful new aesthetics. I liked the badging that's on them, but talking about those, and then also with ERX specifically, like with this fitting studio, and then Evnroll as a company, what do you see as the progression of Evnroll over the next, let's say, 3 years, right? Like, what do you feel like is going to happen in your role as a fitter? What do you think you're going to see? And then maybe just like a little peek at kind of where Evnroll's head is at as far as treating ERX the way they do, and with putter fitting being so important to Evnroll, what's the catalyst and what's the outlook for that moving forward?
Sure. So to start with, V Series for 2025. So first off, it's just an expansion of the 23 line, I believe. So we've got a V2, which is kind of a short body blade, the 5.2, V5.2, which is kind of a mid-mallet, kind of a fanged mid-mallet, and then the 5.1 would be, again, that same similar size, but with a cross connection in the back piece.
Yeah.
Okay, so that back piece, which is interchangeable, which makes my job so much fun.
Super.
I can change the weights in it. I can change the color of it. Not to mention, I've got 6 different hosels that I can play around with and make adjustments to that. So we'll also have a V12, which is an expansion of the EV12, and that's going to be more of a rear-weighted, high MOI mallet. In
Super
that case.
stable, big mallet.
Super stable, aluminum face, and then we've had a ton of success with that one too. So great options as far as sound, feel, look, everything with that is super, super versatile. And so I'm very excited about having that in the studio. And then with Evnroll specifically going forward, man, I think the goal is to expand just our brand awareness in what the face technology is really doing with ball roll, with what we're capable of doing options wise. Through our entire line, that we have literally something that's going to fit everybody. From a stroke standpoint, from a preference standpoint, from an aesthetic standpoint. We'll have something for everybody, and then part of that stems out to our tour program, and so we'll have more of a push on LPGA Tour, PGA Tour, Korn Ferry Tour, where we can, get some of our product in some of those guys' hands and get it on the biggest stage in golf.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think, like I said, having known you guys for several years now, not only you but the rest of the team here, and then being able to be on a first name basis with Garen, it's super enjoyable, and to see what you guys are doing. And again, I talked about this in the beginning, but to look around here and to watch people work and to watch the putters get made, and just how much everybody here really loves the product and really believes in the product, and also just wants golfers to just play better golf, right? Like, that's always what it should come down to. That's why we all do what we're doing. It's just to lower those scores on the scorecard, and we choose to do that with new equipment, which is I like that. Like, don't change your swing, blame your clubs, and it's just such an enjoyable thing to do, and to be able to come here and you and I get to shoot content once or twice a year, which is always fun, and the new stuff coming looks absolutely beautiful. It's a very cool experience here, and I think that you guys being a smaller brand compared to some of the larger guys, but really honed in on what makes Evnroll so great and what makes it different than the other contenders, is really cool, because you guys don't really stray on your messaging. You're not trying to chase trends so much. Like, even the 38 stuff when it came out, you guys waited on that a little bit, and you guys made sure that it still fit the Evnroll story and that you guys were proud of that product coming out instead of just slapping a grip on a longer shaft on the head you already had, right? That would have been probably a different story, and I know enough people in this building that wouldn't have happened in the first place, right? Like, that's not how you guys work. There's thought and there's productivity that goes into the design of this new stuff, and it's the same thing with the Zero, right? You guys had the OG Zero, which I never thought got enough credit, and I've said that to you guys many
I
times
agree.
because the other company that does something similar, just, every time I made a Zero video, people were like, oh, it's just that. And I'm like, no, but this one's been out for like a long time. So the new Zero stuff is super cool because, again, it's another thing of like, it wasn't just a, hey, we need to release a new one with more marketing to compete. It was a, okay, how do we make an Evnroll difference here? How do we do something that changes the way we're thinking about this so that we can add something to the conversation instead of just adding a product, right? And I think that's a huge mindset around here.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. Specifically with Zero is, we recognize that this is some cool design and tech, and it's, who cares if it's not the first time it's been done, right? Let's figure out a better, more efficient way to do it.
Yeah.
That hopefully will make people putt better.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're shooting for, and we'll have some expansions on that stuff coming for you down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, man. Well, unless you got anything else you want to add in quick, or
I'm good, Jake. Thanks for coming in, buddy. It's
right.
always good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me again, everybody. It was a pleasure to sit down with Alan here at ERX. This is Evnroll's headquarters as well, in Carlsbad. So if you are in anywhere near this area, if you're just remotely kind of close to here, step in, make an appointment, come see Alan. It will be a fantastic, fantastic fitting. Like, it just truly will be. Not only because the experience is cool, just because of all the stuff that you get to play with and look at, but just Alan obviously is an absolute professional, really knows what he's doing. It's super fun to have him look at your putting stroke and show you what you're doing, but then also why a new setup would be great for you. And then, you get to see the HQ stuff here too, and you know that it's all going to be built within like a 2-mile radius of here, which is absolutely sick. I need to keep harping that point because I think it's so cool. But yeah, so for now, other than that, hopefully 2025 we'll have more podcasts. I did not do as many as I wanted to in 2024, but 2025 we're going to have more of them for sure. These are always great, introducing you to people within the industry. So for now, thanks for watching, and subscribe to Made for the Range for more. Peace.